Our group presentation of a diverse artist's artwork was on Ratcliffe Bailey by Kyle Adams, Tahira Allen, and Reagan Bird, and Jasmine Carswell. Ratcliffe Bailey is an African American artist who was born in Bridgetown, New Jersey. At the age of 4, he moved to Atlanta, Georgia. He describes himself as first and foremost an artist, a person of this world, and an artist of African descent who grew up in the South and has chosen to continue to live and work in the South. His art is about history and the mystery of history. He received a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Atlanta College of Art. Bailey identifies as a painter, a sculptor, and a mixed media artist who utilizes a layering of imagery, culturally resonant materials, and text to explore the themes of ancestry, race, and memory. He traces his ancestry to the Mandis people of Sierra Leone, West Africa, and this is another source of his inspiration. His work is often created out of found materials and certain pieces from his past, including traditional African sculpture, 10 types of his family members, piano keys, and most importantly, Georgia red clay. In this quote we found by Ratcliffe Bailey, he states that, "I believe that by making things that are very personal, they become universal. I am first and foremost an artist, a person of this world, and an artist of African descent who grew up in the South, who has chosen to continue to live and work in the South." A big theme in Bailey's work is that he explores American history and memory to encourage healing and otherworldliness through art. So we turn to his Memory as a Medicine collection, which is his most comprehensive exhibition of art. We chose Western Currents because upon first glance, the painting seemed to embody every theme and element that Bailey as an artist was known for. Before looking deeper into the painting, we all agreed that this work of art was telling a story pertaining to the past history of the slave trade and the relations between Africa and America. You see, this exhibition features 37 works ranging from heroic to intimate scale, including installations, paintings, sculptures, mixed media, photos on metal, and works on paper. With the heavy blues and African art figures, there was a melancholy yet tribal feeling to the art that we thought was telling a bold narrative. The New York Times described Bailey's work as being fueled by an exploration of Black Atlantic culture, the vital, nurturing, agitated link between Africa and the Americas. And this is exactly the intention we derived from his creation of Western Currents. You see, upon first glance, we immediately knew that this was an extremely powerful piece. His reference to the middle passage was stunning. The deep blues in their different shades and contrasts helped evoke a melancholy feeling. We felt pain and we felt sadness. As we let our eyes guide us figure by figure, the pieces that stuck out to us the most were those that were found in the ocean. This represented the lost ones, those Africans that felt that jumping into the ocean to their imminent deaths would be better than living a life of enslavement and captivity. Our first genuine reaction was rage, because this painting represents a deplorable time in the world's grand history. We were angry for those that were enslaved. We were angry for those who would be born enslaved. We were angry for those that would never get to experience freedom. After letting the painting resonate with us for a bit, we were really able to accept the painting for exactly what it was, a work of art. This painting reminds us a lot of the painting The Ship, painted by J.M.W. Turner, in concept, but their artistic styles are very different. Bailey does an outstanding job of capturing this transatlantic slave trade and its essence, and uses his cultural background to propel his art to the next level. After conducting some research on Bailey, we found that his work typically follows three themes: water, which features references to the historical trauma of the Black Atlantic; blues, which illustrates music as art; and blood, the focal point of ideas emerging from ancestry and race. In Western Currents, we are shown the most prevalent themes found are blood and water, which work in conjunction with one another to accurately depict the atrocities carried on by the transatlantic slave trade. The painting is dominated by a deep blue shade, complemented with lighter shades to show the crashing waves at night. But you see, instead of painting typical people, Bailey makes the choice to use figurines to represent African slaves found on the ships. They represent different cultures, such as the Ashanti people and the other different tribes found in Africa that were taken to be slaves in the Americas. All of the figurines, however, are not people. They appear to be objects. My group believes that these objects serve as a depiction of the deaths of both African people and culture. At the top of the painting, you can see what appears to be a shining white light from above, which appears to be the moon. We also believe that the moon is symbolic in this sense because slaves later used that same moonlight that some died under to lead themselves to freedom. Overall, the painting gives a very serious and solemn feel, but the seriousness is what enables the audience to truly capture the painting's essence. As we previously discussed, this painting is rooted heavily in the history of the transatlantic slave trade. This was the mass importation of enslaved Africans to the Americas to complete free labor in the 17th century. The Atlantic Passage, or also known as the Middle Passage, was notorious for its brutality and for the overcrowded, unsanitary conditions on slave ships, in which hundreds of Africans were packed tightly into tiers below decks for a voyage of about 5,000 miles. As you can see in the picture to the bottom right, we're shown how the slaves are packed in not like people, but like cattle, or like objects, like animals. They were typically chained together, and usually the low ceilings did not permit them to sit upright. From packing the slaves on top of one another like lifeless bodies to being auctioned and sold like animals, the slave trade is one of the biggest atrocities in world history, leaving over 60 million Africans dead at the hands of European imperialism. To me and to us, this painting, Western Currents, depicts what some say was the worst part of the process. Slaves were housed in barracks that had little to no living conditions. They weren't allowed baths or anywhere to urinate or defecate. Many of them tried to revolt and take over ships, as we see in the bottom left picture, while others either accepted their fate of enslavement or jumped to their deaths, as we see with the figurines in the water in the painting Western Currents. You see, Western Currents is a powerful painting that tells a powerful story, and it's one that we must continue to tell so that we, as a world, learn from our mistakes. In the painting, we see that all of the figurines are smashed together and very close to one another, which represents how packed the slave ships from West Africa to the United States really were. This artwork, in a sense, attempts to create a strong reaction from its audience about how the brutality affected those involved in the transatlantic slave trade. A few figurines are placed in the water. This could represent the ones that died or the ones that jumped into the vast ocean to escape the conditions present on board of the ship. Some figurines are facing the opposite direction and looking back towards Africa, and there are a few looking towards the new land, and a few are looking towards the sky for an answer as to why this may be happening to them. In all honesty, it really makes the audience feel bad, and it resonates with us about how difficult and how ugly the slave trade actually was. The artist reflecting on this allows us to go forward as a society and see just how horrific our past truly was. In our opinion, the work was extremely successful in terms of evoking emotion from the viewers. In our opinion, it also definitely takes on an expressionist and pragmatist aesthetic theory because it's a highly expressive piece, and it definitely highlights the importance of being knowledgeable about our history, about American history, and about how the Africans and now the African Americans are dealing with the trauma that was caused. This painting strikes us as a very postmodern in nature. His forms are very mixed and matched, and he utilizes different media and different styles in the very same painting. Western Current's artwork. It provides us a strong visual for its audience to a very dark time in our history. The transatlantic slave trade occurred for well over 100 years and separated millions of people from their relatives in Africa. The conditions of the journey across the Atlantic were absolutely abysmal. Typically, the slaves were pushed together so close that many died of suffocation. As a group, we believe Radcliffe created this work of art for us to reflect and make sure that anything like this ever happens again. Seeing some figurines not on the ship and in the water symbolizes what we believe to be the ones that died on their way over the Atlantic, or the ones that could not take the harsh conditions anymore and decided to jump and end their lives to relieve them of the torture they're experiencing. Another interpretation our group came up with was why the figurines were looking in certain directions. Some are looking towards the new land, some looking towards Africa, some looking towards the heavens. The ones looking back, in our opinion, are sad and they're upset that they're leaving their homeland. And the ones looking forward to the new land are, in a sense, accepting their fate. While the ones that look up simply ask God, or whoever they believe to be the higher power, why are they the ones that were chosen for this atrocity to happen to them? In conclusion, our group learned so much from this one painting. From learning about the Middle Passage and the millions of slaves that died and that were dislocated from their families and dislocated from their homes, to how European imperialism impacted not only Africans, but the entire world around it. Our group learned that looking towards the future is the only way that we will prevent anything that happened in the past from ever happening again.